with your daily news update. Okay, here we are, the end of July, July 31st, in the year of our Lord 2025. Got a lot of great information for you tonight, as usual. Let me go ahead and click over here, Murtech on Rumble. Okay, this is the video that you're watching right now, my episode 1640. Let me get into this. Hi, Debbie. Okay, this is the video. Nice to see you. Glad you could join us. All right, let me scroll down here and click this Show More button. And we have information from Black Conservative Perspective, Doug in Exile, Newsmax, and Steve Gruber Show. Okay, but before we get into that, I got a lot of shout outs here. Tismed Mep D just started following my channel. Jeff B08757 just started following my channel. So thank you very much for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, Granny99 gave me a comment on my daily news wrap-up from last night. Duper777 commented on my episode 1639. Debbie BS commented on my extra 424A and 424B. And Duper777 and Debbie BS commented on my extra 424C. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 425A, 425B, and 425C. So thank you very much, folks. Debbie BS, Duper777, and Grandma 99, Granny 99. Thank you so very much for your comments. I really appreciate your input and your support. So thank you again. All right, here we go. Let's jump back up here then. And speaking of comments, let me give out the comment of the day from Duper777. Let me go ahead and click on that. And right here, thank you for all your hard work, for all the hard work you do to help protect our constitutional republic from those working to destroy our great country. Where we go one, where we go all. There we go. Where we go one, we go all. So thank you very much, Duper777. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support and the encouragement.
There's some good news.
Let's get back here and move on down here and go ahead and get started with Black Conservative. Kamala Harris folds on running for California governor after Democrats refuse to pledge her. Huh. I wonder why. Let's take a listen and find out.
What did Willie Brown say to you about Kamala Harris? Because there was a lot there.
He in effect said he doesn't think governor is a fit for her.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about her strengths in the legal world, but not as an executive, which to me was pretty stunning because this is a guy who knows her very well. He's a legend in Democratic politics, right? He's been a mentor to Kamala, and he actually cares about the future of California authentically. And he, in effect, said she should try something different.
And he also said to you that he told her that when Joe Biden offered her the vice presidency, that she should turn it down and try to be the attorney general instead.
He did. What he told me is that when she was one of the final five and Biden was reviewing the final candidates, he recommended to her when she asked him for his advice that he suggest that Biden nominate her as the attorney general. And it goes back to this theme of he believes that Kamala is better in the legal world, not as an executive. And that's so important right now in terms of what California needs, which he and I talked about further in the episode.
And several days later.
News. And that breaking news coming from former Vice President Kamala Harris, as she has just announced that she will not be running for California governor, opening up the race for many eyeing the position, especially in the Democratic Party. In a statement today, Harris said, quote, "In recent months, I have given serious thought to asking the people of California for the privilege to serve as their governor. I love this state, its people, and it's my promise. It is my home. But after deep reflection, I've decided that I will not run for governor in this election," end of quote. Thanks for joining us at noon. I'm Lisa Gonzalez. This announcement comes after much anticipation for her decision to run for governor of Democratic Party and people who were kind of waiting to fundraise and really get their campaign going.
This essentially breaks a dam that was holding up this race, especially when it comes to fundraising, because of Harris's name recognition, because of her place in the Democratic Party, her fundraising ability. This governor's race was essentially stalled for Democrats at this point as she made this decision. This is the high stakes race to replace Governor Gavin Newsom, who terms out in 2026. You can only serve 2 terms here in California. There is a long list of people vying for this office. Democrats include, but are not limited to, the people you see on your screen.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about some pretty fascinating news out of the Democrat Party. Okay, as Kamala Harris, the former vice president and Democrat nominee in 2024, has decided that she's not going to run for governor of California. Now, I want to react to this news because I'm not really surprised by this decision. It is actually a really big deal because I think that it is a sign that her career is over. And I'm not saying that in an exaggerated way, right? Which is, the way a lot of us commentators kind of exaggerate, right? When something bad happens to a politician, oh, their career is over. I'm not exaggerating, right? I'm actually like very serious. Like I think that her career might actually be over. And I want to react to this because her reasoning for why she's dropping out, in my opinion, indicates that it's very close to the end, right? In regards to being a politician, an executive, which you guys saw at the beginning of this video, her ex-boyfriend, her ex-lover, Willie Brown, went on record to say that, yeah, Kamala should not run for governor of California. She's not a good executive. She's better as a legal person, right? She's better working under somebody else rather than being the top dog, okay? And I think he's right. I think he's 100% right. As of right now, Kamala has basically the same chance of becoming president in 2028 as President Trump winning a 3rd term, which right now is constitutionally not possible, which really tells you everything you need to know about how odds makers are feeling about Kamala Harris's chances of running and becoming a Democrat nominee in 2028 and actually winning the presidential election.
For the 2028 presidential election. And overall, Vice President J.D. Vance tops the list with 28%, followed by Gavin Newsom, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to round out the 3. Marco Rubio comes in at 6%, Kamala Harris at just 4%. She's tied with President Trump, who is ineligible to run for re-election. So I don't know what that gets her, really. Let's break it down by party now. In the top 3, J.D. Vance, far and away the top pick for the Republican nomination with 56%. Secretary Rubio trails far behind with 7%. And on the Dem side, Newsom, AOC, and Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, all within about 8 percentage points.
Yeah, I cannot stress to you guys just how bad that is for Kamala Harris. Okay, she has the same odds as the current president of the United States, who's ineligible, right? Right now, as of right now, constitutionally ineligible. She has the same chance of.
Okay, now I was thinking about this, for 2028. I know it's 3 years away, but yeah, Rubio has been doing a fantastic job. He's got a good speaking voice. He's great presentation, and so does J.D. Vance. And I was, figuring, they would be like neck and neck. I didn't realize that there was, that far apart. So what would really be fabulous, because Marco Rubio had such a great presentation here, a great presence in Donald Trump's administration, I think the dream ticket would be J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio as his vice president, and then Rubio then would be in line for 28, 32, 36. Okay, so I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below or in the chat. I mean, it's not too early to just start thinking about it. J.D. Vance looks good with his the support that he's got in that survey, whatever they did, and I think Marco Rubio would be a good running mate for him. But anything can change between now and 3 years, or probably be 2 years when they start working on campaigning. So sorry to interrupt. Let's get back to that.
Winning the 2020 election as him, and she was the Democrat nominee, and she was the vice president. That is very, 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 very bad. Okay, I cannot stress enough how bad that is. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this decision for her not to run for California governor, because in my mind, this doesn't mean that she's running for president. In fact, this, in my opinion, is more of an indication that her career is nearing an end. So let's get into it.
Breaking news that I spoke about. It's from the state of California, and it concerns the former presidential candidate and former vice president of the United States. Kamala Harris is not running for governor of California. We learned that from the reporting of The Hill's Alex Gangitano, who joins us today, along with the senior political correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, Molly Ball, who's with us, and our News Nation White House correspondent, Kelly Meyer, who's live on the North Lawn. So I wanted to start with this, then get to some of these other stories that I just mentioned, because we're just learning this information, or better said, Alex, you're just learning this information. What do you know?
That's right. A statement from Harris just came out at 3 p.m. basically saying that she's taken the last 6 months since she lost that race to President Trump in November to reflect on where she wants to be in her political future, how she wants to contribute to politics. And she said, I've decided I will not run for governor in this election, and that she has decided that public service can be done outside of elected office. So this is something people were waiting for months, to see if she'd step into this race to replace Governor Gavin Newsom, who's term limited. And here you go. She's decided to sit this one out for now.
Molly Ball, thoughts, reaction?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, we had been hearing for months that this was something she was strongly considering, but she also has not been really out there. She's made very few public appearances since losing the election in November. And I think it's fair to say the vibes were kind of bad around a potential gubernatorial run for her. You know, I've been out in California doing some reporting over the last few months, and there was a really notable lack of enthusiasm, even among a lot of Democrats. And at the state Democratic convention, which I believe was also about a month ago, you had a lot of rank and file delegates saying the same thing, saying that they were not super enthused about her candidacy. So while she would have been the biggest name in the race and obviously would have been a major factor, she leaves this field really in disarray with a lot of Democrats who I think are now going to get in.
Yeah, you know, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Just what, a year ago, right? Almost a year ago, but yeah, it's about the anniversary of Kamala Harris entering the race, right? We were told by the media that Kamala Harris was the best thing since sliced bread, right? This is what we're told. That somehow, some way, everybody was so excited for the same person that nobody was excited for a year before that, right? Because we remember back in 2022, 2023, when there were rumors about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris not getting along, right? There was trouble in Wonderland, right, in the White House. Democrats were hard pressed to endorse Kamala Harris running as Joe Biden's VP, right? They were talking about replacing Kamala with Pete Buttigieg, right? Now all of a sudden, Joe Biden has to drop out of the race. And again, Kamala's amazing. She's great, right? She's getting all these endorsements that, you know, people like Al Sharpton, he alleges that he wasn't paid for, right? Roland Martin, Oprah, call her daddy, all these people, Beyonce, all these people came out of the woodwork. Oh, Kamala's amazing. You don't understand. She's great, right? Democrats all saying how great she is. She loses the election, gets embarrassed by President Trump. And now all of a sudden, once again, nobody likes Kamala. It really shows you how fake the Democrat Party is, guys. These people are so fake, okay? We were told just a year ago she was the best thing since sliced bread. Now she can't even get Democrats excited in California. That is her home state, the most liberal state in the union, okay? Kamala Harris is a progressive. She can't get her own home state excited about her running for governor. There's no way. Like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way she is going to be able to win a Democrat primary. She's just not going to be able to. It's just not going to be possible. She can't. She's not going to do it. Again, that's part of the reason why they didn't want to have one, right? Part of the reason why they didn't want to have one when Biden dropped out is because they knew that if they had a primary, Kamala likely was not going to win. And if Kamala lost, then that would create a big divide in the party, mainly when you talk about the black bourgeoisie, right? The black liberal elite, they would be super pissed off about Kamala not being the nominee. That's why they didn't have a primary, okay? Because they didn't believe that she could win fair and square, right?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And, I have to agree with him. What he's saying is seems to be right. Let's go ahead and click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Black Conservative Perspective. I am following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Following his channel, giving him a thumbs up. Okay, let's jump back here. Let me, there we go. I got to open this back up again. Well, there was a little glitch with Rumble. Back here. I'm not sure what that was all about. So, here we go. Let's slide down here and open the description box again. And let's move on to, there we go. Doug in Exile. He just got busted. Okay, that sounds interesting. Let's take a look and see what that's
Other
all about.
than being mentally deranged, do the Democrats have anything to offer America? Other than being an obstruction party, obstructionist against common sense, do the Democrats have any other thing to run on? Other than hating America and lying and just being deranged about Trump, do Democrats have anything? Well, they imply Tom Homan is a racist for doing his job. And we're going to go into everything. Do the Democrats have anything to run on? Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Part of why I'm happy is because I want the Democrats gone. I don't want to take my boot off their neck until that whole party is just a thing, like the Whig Party, a thing of the past, where we don't even think about them anymore. I want a new party. I want them gone. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Here's Tom Homan.
Position, not us. So it's the false media that's pushing the poll.
Is there a political question to that about?
I'm not a politician, and I'm a border guy, and we're enforcing the laws. We're not making this up. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress. I see all these people protesting ICE. Why aren't they protesting the Hill? If they don't like what ICE doing, protest the people who wrote the bill. I see members of Congress comparing us to racists and members to terrorist organizations. If we're terrorists for enforcing immigration law, what's that make them? They wrote the law.
I like this new tack. I had not thought of this argument before. That's why I'm bringing it up on this show. Tom Homan brings up a great truth that
I've been talking about it forever. The people in Congress are complaining about it. They're the ones that wrote the immigration laws. Okay? If they don't like them, change them. But they're not going to do that. So, I've been saying, well, the immigration laws are so tough. Well, then change them. You're the ones that write the laws. You hear these Democrat and Republican congressmen and senators talking about how the immigration, Republican rhinos, how the immigration laws need to be changed. Well, then change them. You're the ones that change the laws.
Implying that he's a racist for following the law. They're the ones that wrote the law, so the Democrats should go look in the mirror.
We're enforcing laws enacted by Congress, and we're going to do it with no apologies. We're going to do exactly what President Trump has promised American people to do. The reason why President Trump was elected president, because people believe in a secure border, and people believe that we should remove public safety threats and national security threats in this country. And that's what we do every single day.
More allies, like interpreters, to help our guys over there.
Look, every one of them would be vetted properly, which weren't vetted during the Biden administration. Decision be made by case basis. But let's remember, even the Department of Defense, OIG, came back and said they weren't vetted properly. Look at the thousands of criminal aliens we're arresting right now that last administration released in the country saying they're properly vetted. They lied to the American people. We don't have access to most countries' criminal data. Most countries don't have an NCIC like we do. When they said they were vetted, they were run through NCIC and Triple I's, state systems here. So unless they had a criminal history here, they said, okay, good to go. We've arrested thousands of criminals that have criminal histories in home country, wanted for murder in the home country, We're on a terrorist watch list and still releasing this country. President Trump's doing the right thing for the American people every day. This country's safer every day because the men and women of ICE are doing the work they took an oath to enforce. I mean, no one can argue that sanctuary cities' crime rates are dropping.
Picking this guy. Remember, our last border czar was Kamala Harris. Holy smokes, what was happening to America? Tom Homan is amazing. He just does his job. And by the way, border czar has almost no power. All he's doing is implementing American law. He just is doing his job. He simply does a job. And Kamala Harris had the same job. And they were letting in hardened murderers from other countries that we knew were murderers and let them go. You had one job. Now, on the Democrats, so Democrats are running on, if you split the issues, 10, 90, or 20% to 80%, Democrats are taking on all of the issues that are sitting at about 20%. And then all they do is obstruct Trump. So here's John Thune on Trump needing his judge appointments brought through, and the Democrats are just obstructing us. Look at that man's beautiful tie, John Thune.
As you all know, we are spending a good amount of our time and energy here in the Senate on nominations these days. And we've seen an unprecedented level of obstruction and delay and blocking from Democrats. And as a consequence of that, we've had to kind of grind through, and that's what we're going to keep doing. This date, back in 2021, Joe Biden had gotten 46 nominees confirmed, either by voice vote or unanimous consent. Donald Trump has 0.
Okay, this is the new way that we're doing politics. John Thune is warning the Democrats, you do not want to start this precedent. This precedent of past elections, 2020, and they think it's their job to keep a president from exercising his right of appointments. And they give consent. This is also, I believe, going to have to go to the Supreme Court to straighten out exactly what advise and consent means on these judges, and are they being obstructionists? That is Congress going in and acting in a way that the founders didn't intend? If the president is supposed to be able to pick his judges and make his appointments, and now they're locking up the government, is the Congress overstepping their boundaries? We need to legally decide that. But just remember, the Democrats, this goes back into what are they running on? What are they doing? This is Chuck Schumer, by the way, minority leader, Cory Booker, all these guys doing their job. We're going to get some lunatic Cory Booker quotes, more quotes from more people. Here's more on John Thune.
0, not a single one confirmed by voice or unanimous consent. And further, the Democrats are making it hard, even on bipartisan nominees, that sometimes will get 60 votes plus on the floor, one even up to 83 votes on the floor. So even the bipartisan noms are being blocked and delayed, so much so that the Democrats have been forcing me, when I file cloture just to get a nominee considered on the floor, to go in and out of executive and legislative session. So these are just dilatory tactics designed to block and obstruct the president and his agenda. And the sad reality is that there are a lot of these people who fill important positions in our government who need to be able to be confirmed to get there so they can do their jobs.
One of them is Emil Bove. We're going to do this over on Mike Davis. Look at this on for life. Sincerely, Article 3 Project. They want him confirmed. Tell the Senate, confirm Emil Bove, a bold, fearless defender of the Constitution. The establishment hates Emil Bove because he tells the truth. The left fears him because he fights back. America needs judges like Emil Bove, principled, proven, and unshakable. So did they comply? This one is one of my favorite tweets. So this is just a few minutes later, a few hours later. Here's Mike Davis. Amen. Chuck Grassley is the hero. What did Chuck Grassley do? Again, judges, DOJ officials, taxes, trade. all the key issues, Grassley has quietly and steadily delivered more for President real Donald Trump than any other member of Congress. I'm going to get back to that in just a second. Both terms, Grassley is a workhorse, not a show horse. What did he do? Look at this. That's it. With 50 votes, the Third Circuit is guaranteed to have a new judge, M.L. Bove. We got him. Remember, he's next. He could be next in line for the Supreme Court. Congratulations to him and to Chuck Grassley for navigating quite the Senate hearing and to President Trump. But most importantly, congratulations to the federal judiciary nomination of M.L. Bove III of Pennsylvania to be United States Circuit Judge for the Third Circuit. Yay, 50, nay, 47. What's the big deal about this? I'm going to bring up Chuck Grassley because I've heard a lot of nonsense on Twitter and in some of my audience. It's popular for people to say that if you're too old, they need to have age restrictions on senators, that is age discrimination. That's nuts. And Chuck Grassley is one of our oldest guys in the Senate. I don't even believe in term limits, by the way. I know everyone says it, but there's nothing about, if you are doing a successful job, you ought to be voted back in that seat. Chuck Grassley is one of the guys. We will get punished by having guys like Chuck Grassley taken away. If you do term limits and if you do age restrictions, there is nothing about this man's age. Yes, he's old. Yes, he's been there forever. He's doing a great job. So it's unprincipled to prefer people of a certain race, let's say, or prefer people of a certain sex, or prefer people of a certain age. We don't do that in America. So this is I'm going to give you that. I know that's probably unpopular. I don't care. You're all wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree with him. Yeah, some of these people like Nancy Pelosi. But, the situation is every 2 years, the House of Representatives comes up for re-election. If somebody's doing a shitty job, then why do people keep voting them in? I don't get it. Could have something to do with fraudulent elections. I know that. But hopefully the Trump administration can get a handle on that. The same way with the Senate. Those guys are up for re-election every 6 years. If they're doing a shitty job. Now, we had, I can't even remember his name, like 12 years ago, we primaried our Republican senator out. Then a Democrat actually won the election because the Republican senator, I guess, wasn't getting enough support from the Republican National Convention Committee. And but then after 6 years, we elected a Republican back in to the Senate for Indiana. So, it can happen. My theory is, if you got a Republican in there, if he's going to act like a Democrat, I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to vote for the Democrat, but I'm not going to vote for him or her. And if they get, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way. If they get voted out, well, then what's the difference if you get a Democrat in there? Because this last person was voting like a Democrat anyway. So, then after the Democrat gets in there and really starts screwing shit up, then you can get a Republican. What's, another 6 years, or for a representative 2 years? At least you got the guy out, and now we've got 2 Republicans in the Senate. So there you have it.
Sorry.
But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there and show you that this video does come from Doug in Exile. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. And Rumble's acting kind of weird tonight, folks. I'll be looking at my control screen here, and then all of a sudden pop up, a message will pop up. Oops, something went wrong. Refresh. And then, of course, it blacks out your screen for that second or two, or you have to refresh your screen. So, again, I apologize. My Rumble software is glitching out. Okay, let's jump back here and move on to Newsmax. Chris Salcedo, thank you. Americans are tired of losing to anti-Americans. That's right. Let's see what they have to say.
The Democrats are undertaking unprecedented moves. For those of you who are recent products of left-wing GovEd, unprecedented means those moves have never been done before. Documents indicate that Barack Obama weaponized the government, fabricating charges to target President Trump and his supporters. As a result, President Trump is calling for action. President Trump retruthing this graphic on Truth Social, calling for Obama and his cabal of criminal communists to be held accountable. And where I have no doubt that the America First coalition will do all it can to seek justice against anti-American Democrats, I cannot say the same about the Republican Party. Americans are tired of losing to anti-Americans. That's my focus in today's preamble. The Democrats have committed crime after crime against our people. Once their treachery is revealed, the Democrats lie and commit more crimes to avoid accountability for their initial crimes. And Democrats keep on doing this because the GOP refuses to make Democrats pay a price for their actions. When conservatives refuse to comply with Democrats' sham January 6th investigation by refusing to answer congressional subpoenas, Democrats threw Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in jail. Hunter Biden defied GOP subpoenas. Nothing happened to Hunter Biden, not one day in jail. In fact, it's rather routine for Democrats to ignore GOP subpoenas and get away with it. The best the GOP can do is sue. Lawsuits that cost the American taxpayers more money, and still no Democrats go to jail. And Democrats are taking full advantage of the Republicans' timidity. Here's Senate Majority Leader John Thune describing how Democrats continue to break established norms and decorum in the United States Senate.
We are spending a good amount of our time and energy here in the Senate on nominations these days. And we've seen an unprecedented level of obstruction and delay and blocking from Democrats. And as a consequence of that, we've had to kind of grind through, and that's what we're going to keep doing. If you look at just the historical precedent with regard to noms, we have never seen in history anything like what the Democrats are now doing. As of this date, back in 2021, Joe Biden had gotten 46 nominees confirmed either by voice vote or unanimous consent. Donald Trump has 0.
There's a lot to unpack there. We learned there that despite Joe Biden nominating highly unqualified and partisan hacks to staff his auto-pen administration, we also learned that Republicans lined up to bend the knee to the figurehead puppet we now know was mentally incapable of doing the job. I beg the Republican Party to do what the Democrats are doing right now, to save our people pain and anguish. But the GOP at the time cared more about Democrats than their own voters. And they greenlit all of Joe Biden's nominees. But we also learned that Democrats are doing all they can to defeat America First nominees who would actually bring justice to Democrats for the aforementioned crimes that they have committed.
The Democrats are making it hard, even on bipartisan nominees, that sometimes will get 60 votes plus on the floor, one even up to 83 votes on the floor. So these are just dilatory tactics designed to block and obstruct the president and his agenda. And the sad reality is that there are a lot of these people who fill important positions in our government who need to be able to be confirmed to get there so they can do their jobs. And that's the way of the American people. That's what they voted for. They voted for this president, and he has not had an opportunity to get the people that he wants to have man his administration get there to do their job. So this has got to stop. And clearly the Democrats are starting something and creating a precedent that is going to come back to haunt them. This is really bad.
Really bad. Yes, it's got to stop. I agree with the leader. And it would stop if only there was an opposition party to the Democrat Party. If only the GOP were like the leader of the America First coalition, President Trump. Sadly, they're not. What has the GOP caucus told Leader Thune that they wish him and them to do to combat historic Democrat obstruction?
This is a bad practice on their part because, as you all know, what goes around comes around here. And I think, regrettably for the Democrats, they're going to rue the day if they keep this practice up. So I am hoping that they will work with us, come to their senses in the next few days here to try and put together a package of nominees. There are a whole bunch of bipartisan nominees that are out there that are available for consideration right now. There are Senate Democrats who actually do want to work on getting some noms through the process, but their leadership is blocking that. So that's got to change, and if it doesn't, we're going to be here a while.
What? Wait. So the Democrats' historic obstruction that they're already doing, have already done, that doesn't already merit an immediate response? That doesn't come with any consequences whatsoever? They get another chance and another chance and another forever? Wow. Is it any wonder the Democrats use the GOP as doormats? Is it any wonder I've lost faith in the two-party system? The GOP response to Democrat extremism reminds me of another guy who let Democrats, like Hillary Clinton, get away with malfeasance.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
You heard Leader Thune say they might be there a while. Many are reading that as possible cancellation of the August recess. Democrats, after doing no work for a living, for the American people, they think they deserve a taxpayer-funded vacation, over a month. If the GOP were serious about making the Democrats pay for their lazy, slothful, unprecedented obstruction, they would cancel the summer recess because there's still work to be done. Can you keep your job and take your vacation if your work isn't done? President Trump called out the GOP's refusal to treat Democrats how Democrats have treated the Republicans. And instead of denouncing historic Democrat obstruction, veteran Republicans are blasting President Trump.
Last night, I was surprised to see President Trump on Truth Social go after me and Senate Republicans over what we call the blue slip. I was offended by what the president said, and I'm disappointed that it would result in personal insults.
Well, Senator Grassley, I'm sorry to hear you're disappointed, but perhaps you now have a sense of how conservative and Republican voters feel about the Republican Party. Your party's response to the most extreme anti-American and destructive version of the Democrat Party this nation has ever been cursed with. Yes, it's disappointing, to say the least. It's a GOP that refuses to capitalize on the Democrats' historic obstruction and their historic record low approval ratings. But to Senator Grassley's credit, the senator is perhaps trying to right a terrible wrong. As we reported, James Comey's FBI just forgot to thoroughly go through thumb drives from Hillary Clinton's illegal homebrew server, the one that was, hacked by enemy and allied nations alike, the one that placed Americans' national security at risk. Grassley wants the Patel-Bongino FBI to go over those thumb drives. Perhaps accountability for the seditious, historic, and damaging actions for Democrats isn't completely dead. But keep in mind, folks, Senator Spartacus Cory Booker seems to have harsher words for Democrats than Republicans do.
The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call. That is complicity with an authoritarian leader who is trashing our Constitution. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose.
See, that's the problem, Senator. Being the communist you are, your side is standing together against the American Constitution, against the American people. For that, you've earned a reckoning. Conservatives eagerly await a political party that will bring Americans that justice. Folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you.
Okay, let me go ahead and pause that and show you this does come from Newsmax. I am subscribed to the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I wanted to give you that. I know that he had, Doug in Exile really likes Grassley. He gave some information on Grassley that wasn't very favorable. But I like to give you different takes on certain subjects. to give you a full perspective and let you make up your own mind. All right, let's jump back here and see what else we've got from Steve Gruber. Dr. Peter McCullough, he's one of the doctors that came out against the jab and came out with alternatives for COVID on how to treat that, and he's been pretty successful. Anyway, Dr. Peter McCullough is going to talk about chemo risks, alternative medicine, and tick bite dangers. Interesting. Let's take a listen to that. Let me get it. There we go.
I was on Dr. Peter McCullough's Substack here recently, and he said the chemotherapy, chemotherapy, we've all been taught, is there. He said the chemotherapy, chemotherapy, we've all been taught, is there to battle cancer. But as I read through, it said that there were some unintended consequences, including the possibility that chemotherapy could actually reactivate dormant cancer cells, creating another problem. Dr. Peter McCullough is the Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company. He joins me now. Doctor, nice to have you back on the program.
Thank you.
Pretty surprising read there on your Substack that chemotherapy designed to fight cancer, to help people become healthy again, can actually reignite the fire and reinvigorate some dormant cancer cells. That's pretty remarkable finding, isn't it?
This study that we were reviewing in the peer-reviewed literature points out two important things that can happen with chemotherapy. Now, patients get chemotherapy in combination with radiation and surgery for many different types of cancer. However, the first thing that can happen is the cancer cells themselves can become resistant to chemotherapy. And that's well described. Where it was working, then suddenly the chemo doesn't work. The other thing that it can do is it can actually incite what's called a secondary malignancy. So it treats the first cancer, and then months to years later, a second cancer arises. So conventional chemotherapy is far from perfect, and oncologists and cancer centers are working night and day to come up with better protocols. But I thought this paper was important, and it shed some light on what I've had some patients observe to say, listen, things were going great with chemo, and then suddenly it stopped working.
Yeah, and suddenly it stops working and it goes the other way. That can happen, and maybe this is part of the answer. Like you say, these oncologists working tirelessly to try to find cures for cancer, and we all certainly hope they do. Now, cancer treatments, as we know, incredibly expensive, and that's good for Big Pharma and its bottom line because they spend lots of money on lobbyists and on television to put their messages out there. What do you think Big Pharma thinks about finding a cure for cancer?
Well, if there's a secondary malignancy, then there's a whole new round of treatment. So we do have some concerns regarding this self-perpetuation of illness. Now, once drugs get generic and they're very affordable, in cardiology, over 90% of the drugs I use are generic. And, I don't have any problem with a patient being on a medicine for years because it's so affordable. But this expensive chemotherapy, which is typically administered by cancer centers under a particular reimbursement scheme where the cancer center gets money for administering the chemotherapy, has created incredible cost structures that insurance companies and patients face. One of the things you suggested, I think should be considered, and I think we should get rid of all the advertising on TV, is an unnecessary cost that the pharmaceutical companies have, and they load it into the price of the drugs, and it's very confusing to the public.
Well, I think what happens is, and I'm sure you see this, people see these ads, they get bombarded with ads from Big Pharma, watching the football game or their favorite program at night, doesn't matter, they get bombarded with these messages, and then people are like, well, gosh, I've got those symptoms, and the next thing you know, they're on the computer, and they're self-diagnosing and creating more problems for themselves and for their doctors because they've convinced themselves they have a problem that they may or may not have and most likely don't have. So all this advertising creates a lot of secondary issues itself, doesn't it?
I think it creates more confusion, Steve. I've
Yeah.
faced this in medicine for decades now. They use complicated acronyms that aren't necessary. I think most patients are just confused, and typically for very rare conditions. And the companies portray the illness in some fanciful way, like somebody dancing around, or and United States and New Zealand are the only countries that allow this. Just like with tobacco advertising, I think it's time for big pharma advertising to go.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One of the drugs we talk about on this program regularly, with you especially, is ivermectin, and it has showed promise when it comes to dealing with cancer and issues like that. The problem with ivermectin is it's dirt cheap. It's dirt cheap. That doesn't help big pharma pad their bottom line. Maybe that's part of the answer, isn't it?
The National Cancer Institute, that's its role to study repurposed drugs. So ivermectin, mebendazole, for instance, there should be giant requests for applications. There's too many clinical observations that patients are doing better adding on ivermectin and mebendazole. At Wellness Company, we actually have a fixed combination. And there's just too many anecdotal reports coming in because it's well tolerated. Patients are doing well. They're excited to have something they can control in battling cancer. Now, it's used off-label. It's used to treat parasitic diseases on-label. But this is up for the NIH and the National Cancer Institute. They should have an all-hands-on-deck, large study, large prospective randomized trials of ivermectin and mebendazole in a variety of cancers. They've studied other generic drugs in the past. They need to get going on this, and the public is getting impatient.
I just went through a protocol for this. The parasite cleanse from the Wellness Company where you work has an ivermectin and mebendazole combination. It's a 21-day run. I just did it. I feel great. I'm glad I did it. It's a parasite cleanse. 60 million Americans have parasites of some sort. If you eat shellfish or sushi, or you've got dogs and cats around the house, you can certainly collect a parasite, not even realize the next thing you've got brain fog, you don't feel well, you're just feeling lethargic. You can have a parasite issue. This parasite cleanse is the gold standard. Worked great for us. We loved it. What would you recommend this?
If there are signs and symptoms, the CDC calls these neglected parasite infections, from Giardia to strongyloides to various forms of hookworms. And we do eat sushi. I had sushi last week. I ended up having a GI problem yesterday, and I do wonder. And so in short of, waiting for a doctor's visit, trying to get stool samples, these drugs are so safe and so effective that an empiric parasite cleanse is what you did is very reasonable. You can go to the Wellness Company, do a review with the doctor, get the medicine shipped out to you, and get going.
Yeah. The fear mongers are running behind schedule, Doctor. Last thing I want to ask you about. I mean, I haven't heard about bird flu, monkeypox, Marburg virus, or anything the last few weeks. What's next on their hit parade? They're always trying to scare us with something.
No doubt there'll be another, roll call for Disease X, the Center for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, CEPI, formed by Gates Foundation and World Economic Forum. Their entire goal is to produce a Disease X in a lab and then come up with a vaccine for it, just like what happened with SARS-CoV-2. So look for that. I can tell you that this biopharmaceutical complex that I described in my first book is so huge. They have trillions of dollars, at their disposal. They're not going to just let this infectious disease biological threat story die, because we've seen one after another. You correctly pointed it out, and there's going to be another one, and the public should be aware.
And here it comes. And by the way, word of the wise, measles is a common childhood illness with about a 95% infection rate when it's unvaccinated, with a death toll of 1 in more than 1,000. So pretty safe. If you want to know more about your good health and taking care of yourself, or this parasite cleanse, go to twc.health/Gruber, twc.health/Gruber. By the way, on the cleanse, you'll save $60 and get free shipping right now. Doctor, greatly appreciate.
Okay, let me go ahead and pause that there and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Steve Gruber, The Steve Gruber Show. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. And getting back here, folks, to our description box. Now, I have followed Dr. Pierre Kory. Right here, you can see in the description box, there's a link to Dr. Pierre Kory. Peter McCullough, right here, the Wellness Clinic. And it's not, this is not a promotional site for me. This is a site because I care about people getting proper treatment, okay? So this is just the Wellness Clinic, www.twc.health. You click on that, and it's going to take you over here to the Wellness Clinic, right there, the Wellness Company. And right there are the physicians. Right there's Dr. Peter McCullough. Dr. Peter McCullough. So, you have it all here. Even My Free Doctor, banned methods used to treat 150,000 COVID patients by doctors' organization had only 4 deaths. I believe that was a better response than the conventional hospitals that when you came in, you were lucky if you made it out alive. Okay, I think they only had like maybe 50% of the people that they treated come out alive. I don't know that number exactly, but I know it wasn't good. Okay, let me make sure I've got everything taken care of here so that I don't try to glitch it. But the thing that we've got a few minutes left, and what the heck? Let's come over here and see what Wendy Bell has to say with Burn Baby Burn. All right, let's share this.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program, joined by author extraordinaire Mike McCormick, who traveled with 4 different presidents and literally transcribed every word they said. Fascinating insight into basically the Beltway. So, Mike, does it seem to you that President Obama is in kind of cover-up mode right now? Because I know that you've found this thing going on with the Obama Library. How does this work with presidential records? Are these libraries that presidents get, are they places where ostensibly all of their private National Archive data would be stored? Is that right, or am I off base?
Well, you're right on, and this is a great time to talk about this because we're going to make a little news. So I wrote a Substack, again, my Midnight and a Laptop, a Good Needle is the name of Substack. A couple days ago, I was on the Obama WhiteHouse.gov website a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden I realized that it was now under the control of the Obama Library. It's run by the National Archive Records Administration, NARA, N-A-R-A. Well, I had been on because I've written so many books about Obama, and I actually contributed to that website, his White House website. When it was there in the White House, it was really well done. Mm-hmm. Well, when his time ended, they called it a frozen in time website. And you could still access it. You could look at all the speeches that he made. You could look at the videos, the photos. Well, all that's changed. That all changed when they put it in the Obama Library, and it changed recently. I'm not sure exactly when recently, but I think within the last 8 months, I was on that library last fall. And so all of a sudden I'm on there, and you can't do a search. And that's what I did when I used to look for stuff in the library. I would go to their White House website. There's a search bar. I'd type in Biden, Ukraine, and 1,000 things would pop up. Now you type in Biden, Ukraine, and you get this message said, "Oh, you're sorry, your search doesn't work. Try and call another office."
What?
And it was like so weird. So the news is, I wrote a Substack on it. I sent an email to that library. I got news back from them yesterday. We're doing an investigation. Thanks for alerting us to this problem. We're doing an investigation. We'll let you know the results.
Huh. So it sounds to me, and when you talk about the Obama Library, you're not talking about a physical structure. You're talking about a website, yes?
The Obama Library is now located in Chicago, and they have an online library system that's located in Chicago. And what they did is they took over control of the WhiteHouse.gov website that was run out of the National Archives. And I'm not sure where that was run. So now they manage it, and they've taken it. It looks terrible. You can't do a search on it.
They don't want us knowing what they've done. They don't want us knowing what they've said. They don't want to provide records, Mike.
Bingo. They don't want people like you and me, like, whistleblowers, to go back into the history and see what Joe Biden did in Ukraine. You can't see that anymore. And the thing is, what's really sinister is if you go to Google and you do Joe Biden Ukraine, all you get is what Joe Biden did as a president of Ukraine, not the crimes he committed as a vice president. That's why I wrote my book. The book was The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. And that has a lot of information off the WhiteHouse.gov website. Speeches that he made that incriminate him in Ukraine. Speeches that
Son of a bee.
Jake Sullivan did that incriminate him in Ukraine. And those are still there if you know where to look. But because the search has been ruined, no one can find them unless I know where to look because I've been there before.
It's sort of like how the CDC completely changed everything when the narrative about COVID and the vaccine started to go sideways. It used to be very easy to access and navigate the system and get data. And then they made it literally impossible. And it sounds like the same thing is going on here. We don't want you to know what happened. Barack Obama and team knew what was coming, Mike.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're a historian, if you're a historical researcher in an academia, you've got to stand up for this. This is an affront 100%. To free speech. Those are our records. We paid for them. They paid for me to be there. I was a federal employee. We paid all the material to be collected. It was done by the White House, and it should be a publicly accessed, and they've cut off access to it.
By the
so
way,
I'm going to write them a salty reply email today, and we'll see. I'll do another Substack on it.
And I was just going to say, by the way, the big thing about Trump was that he didn't give his classified documents over to the National Archives, so we have to raid Mar-a-Lago to get them. Meanwhile, Barack Obama's team is putting up essentially a firewall between we the people and the actual historical record about what these clowns did. That is purposeful. Michael, you got 10 seconds. It is the Substack, the laptop in the, go ahead, Midnight
in the laptop of good and evil. I've got a salty reply to the Obama Library coming up.
It's worth the subscription, guys, 100%. Mike McCormick, thank you for your time, sir. Sean Parnell, Pentagon spokesman.
All right. I wanted to share that with you folks. Great information there on behind the scenes. And this guy may have been a correspondent in the White House, but I don't think he's actually a liberal. Let me go ahead and click on this and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. And again, folks, I hope you don't mind that I shared a little Wendy Bell. To wrap this up, I'd had to have a few extra minutes. So there you have it. Okay, getting back here to the description box. Now, let me remind you folks, these videos that I shared with you come directly from the producers, okay? I'm not taking anything from them. In fact, I'm actually promoting their channels. I've got the links to the videos, the links to their channels right here in the description box. If you want to come down and rewatch these videos, or I didn't finish the video here with Black Conservative Perspective or Doug in Exile, so if you want to click down here and watch that information, by all means do so. I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out. I just like to put information together and share it out with you so that you can get an alternative to what's going on in the mainstream media and deep state swamp. All right? So these are videos that I shared with you, are videos that I've posted on Murtech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic and truth videos. Here's the one from Doug in Exile, and then you saw the one from Wendy Bell that I clicked on Also from Steve Gruber, there's the video there, and the others are on here as well. So I didn't have a chance to share all this information with you, but I do have over 65 videos in my daily news wrap up playlist. So I will be back. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. You take a break too. Grab a donut, cup of coffee, sandwich, soft drink, and meet me back here about 9:30. And let me refresh my list on the daily news wrap up, and get my video put together so that we can get this going. And again, there was a couple of glitches there with Rumble. I'm going to go ahead and reboot my system and get that refreshed so that maybe we won't have a problem with that on Rumble. But before we take off, I want to come up here and check out the comments. And it may have, it was something because I put a comment there. Sorry, folks. Rumble's glitching tonight. I did that. As soon as I made that comment, it glitched. So I don't know if it was because of our chat. I don't know if it was because of the chats that caused it to glitch or what, but I'm going to copy these chats into a comment down here. There we go. Make that permanent with the video because, as you well know, when this live stream is over, the chats simply go away. Let me do a quick refresh on this. Live stream is over. And it looks like we've had 139 people look at this video so far. 26 people are watching it right now as I speak, and I've got 6 thumbs up. So if I could get 20 of you to slide down here and give me a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. I'd greatly appreciate it. But in the meantime here, let's click over here to Mertech.com. I do want to thank you for the time that you spent with me this evening. I really appreciate your support. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later when I do my daily news wrap up. So thank you very much, and may God bless.